Thanks everybody who's starting to log in here today. Thanks for being here. My name's Lindsay. I head up marketing at thoughtbot. And if you haven't joined one of these before, we are checking in with two of the founders who are going through the thoughtbot startup incubator to learn how it's going, what's new, what challenges they're hitting, and what they're learning all along the way. If you're not familiar with thoughtbot, we're a product design and development consultancy, and we help your team and your product become a success. And one way we do that is through our startup incubator. So today we're joined by our co-founders, Mike Rosenthal and Chris Cerrito, co-founders of the startup Goodz. And we also have another special guest today, joining us, Danny Kim from the thoughtbot side, senior product manager at thoughtbot. So I think to start off, we'll head over to the new face, the new voice that we've got with us today. Danny, can you tell us a little bit about your role at thoughtbot and specifically the incubator?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me on and thanks for letting me join in on all the fun. I'm one of the product managers at thoughtbot. I typically work for the liftoff team. We usually work with companies that are looking to go into market with their first version MVP. They might have a product that exists and that they're already kind of doing well with, and they kind of want to jump into a new segment. We'll typically work with companies like that to kind of get them kicked off the ground. But it's been really awesome being part of the incubator program. It's my first time and helping with the market validation side. Definitely also learning a lot from this experience for myself. Coming at it specifically from a PM perspective, there's so much variation usually in product management across the industry, depending on what stage of the product that you're working in. And so I'm definitely feeling my fair share of imposter syndrome here, but it's been really fun to stretch my brain and approach problems from a completely different perspective, and also using different tools. But working with Mike and Chris, it makes it so much easier because they really make it feel like you're part of their team, and so that definitely goes a long way.
Well, then it just goes to show everyone gets imposter syndrome sometimes, even senior product managers at thoughtbot. Thanks for that intro. It's cool to learn, the thoughtbot team learns along the way too, especially if usually you're focused on a different stage of product development. Mike, it's been only 3 weeks or a very long 3 weeks since last we checked in with you, kind of forever in startup time. So I think last time we were just getting to know you two.
Yeah.
And you were walking us through the concept, kind of this merging of the digital and physical world of music and how we interact with music keepsakes or merchandise. First of all, how's my pitch? And has anything major changed to that concept in the last 3 weeks?
No, I mean, I can't believe it's only been 3 weeks. It feels like it's been a long time since we last talked. It's been an intense 3 weeks for sure. No, it's been going really well. I mean, we launched all sorts of stuff. I'm trying to think if anything has sort of fundamentally changed in terms of the plan itself or kind of our what we've been working on. And I think we've pretty much stayed the course to sort of get to where we are now. But it's been really intensive. I think also having sort of Thanksgiving in there, and we were kind of pushing to get something live right before Thanksgiving, and so that week just felt. I mean, I was just dead by Thursday of Thanksgiving. I think we all were. So it's been intense, I would say, is the short answer. And I'm happy to get into kind of where things are at, but big picture, it's just been an intense 3 weeks.
That's cool. And when we talked, you were, definitely getting into, research and user interviews. Did have those influenced any, changes along the way in the plan?
Yeah. They've been really helpful. We've never really done that before in any of the sort of past projects that we've worked on together. And so I think just being able to, read through some of the scripts and then sit through some of the interviews and just kind of hearing people's honest assessment of some things has been really interesting. I'm trying to think if it's materially affected anything. I guess, at first we were like, we kind of had some assumptions around, okay, let's try to find like adult gift givers sounds like the wrong thing. Adults who give gifts as like a persona. But basically the idea that like maybe you give your siblings gifts, and then maybe this could be a good gift idea. And I think we had a hard time kind of finding people to talk in an interesting way about that. And I think we kind of realized it's kind of a hard persona to kind of chop up and talk about, right, Chris? I don't know.
Well, it also seemed to, from my understanding of it, it seemed to like generally stress out the people who are being interviewed because it's kind of about a stressful topic
right.
in a way,
Why?
Like especially, well, I think I don't know. I'm making assumptions, and I maybe because we're close to the holiday season and that's a topic in the back of everybody's mind. But yeah, Danny, would you disagree with that? Those folks, from what we heard, seemed like they were the most difficult to kind of extract answers from. But then if the subject changed and we treated them as a different persona, several of those interviews proved to be quite fruitful. So yeah, it was really interesting.
It really started like you kind of try to get some answers out of people, and there's like some level of people trying to please you to some extent. That's just like naturally how it starts, and you just like keep trying to drill into the answers, and you just keep asking people like, so what kind of gifts do you give? And they're just like, oh my goodness, like I haven't thought about buying gifts for my sister in like in forever, and now like I don't know where to go. And so they get like pretty stressed out about it. But then we just kind of started shifting into like, all right, cool, never mind about that, like do you like listening to music? And they're like, yes. And then it just kind of explodes from there, and they're like, this last concert that I went to and all this stuff, and it was much more fruitful, kind of leaning more towards that actually. Yeah
That's fascinating. I guess that speaks to, especially at this stage and the speed and the amount of interviews you're doing, the need for being like really agile in those interviews, and then like really quickly applying what you're learning to making the next one even more valuable.
Yeah, and I think like we launched just a little sort of website experiment, sort of like an e-commerce experiment right before Thanksgiving, and I think now we're able to sort of take some of those learnings from those interviews and apply them to kind of our both sort of our ad copy itself, but also just different landing pages and different language on the different kind of versions of the site, and see if we can find some resonance with some of these audience groups. So it's been interesting.
Are you still trying to figure out who that early adopter audience is, who that niche persona is?
I think
yes.
we are. I think we have a good idea of who it is, and I think right now we're just trying to figure out really how to reach those people.
That's true.
That I think is the biggest challenge right now for us.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that I think that with the e-commerce experiment, it was sort of a very specific niche thing that is a little bit adjacent to what I think we want to be doing longer term with Goodz. And so it's weird. It's like we're in a place where we're like, oh, we really want to find the people that want this thing, but also this thing isn't necessarily the thing that we think we're going to make longer term. So let's not worry too hard about finding them. You know what I mean? It's been an interesting sort of back and forth on that. Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, I mean, from the interviews that we conducted, we identified 3 key personas. Most of them have come up, but I'll just relist them. There was the sibling gift giver. There was the merch buyers. These are people who go to concerts and buy merchandise, T-shirts, albums, records, things along those lines, to support the artists that they love. And then the final one that was identified was, we gave the title of the proud playlister. And these are people who are really into their digital media platforms, love making playlists, and love sharing those playlists with their friends. And that, I would say, the proud playlister is really the one that we have focused on in terms of this storefront that we launched. Like, the product is pretty much specifically for them. But the lessons that we're learning while making this product and trying to get this into the hands of the proud playlisters will feed into kind of the merch buyers. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny. Like, this week is kind of poignant week for this, right? Because it's the week that Spotify Wrapped launched, right? So it's like in the course of any given year, it's probably like the 1 week of the year that lots and lots and lots of people are thinking about playlists all of a sudden. So trying a little bit see if we can ride that wave or just kind of dovetail with that a bit too.
Absolutely. And do you want to give just like the really quick reminder of what the product experience is like?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Good call. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So it's hopefully this won't blur out. This is a prototype of it. It's called the Goodz mixtape. Basically, the idea is that you purchase one of these from us. You give us a playlist URL. We program that URL onto the NFC chip that's embedded in the good itself. And then when you scan this good, that playlist will come up. So it's a really great way of you make a playlist for somebody and you want to gift it to them. This is a great way to do that. You have a special playlist, maybe between you and a friend or you and a partner. This is a good way to commemorate that playlist, turn it into a physical thing, give that digital file value and presence in the physical world.
Great. Okay, so you casually mentioned this launch of a e-commerce store that happened last week.
Yeah. Didn't feel casual.
Why? Yeah, why? Real casual. Why did you launch it? How's it going?
I don't know. Why did we launch it? I mean, we wanted to be able to test some assumptions. I think, we wanted to get the brand out there a little bit, right? Get a website out there, kind of introduce the concept. This is a very, not that we've invented this product category, but it is a pretty obscure product category, right? And so there's a lot of sort of consumer education that I think that has to go on for people to wrap their heads around this and why they'd want this. So I think we wanted to start that process a little bit, frankly, sort of in advance of a larger launch next year. And see if we could find some early community around this. If we can find those core people who just absolutely love this and connect with it and go wild around it, then those are the people that we're going to be able to get a ton of information from and build for that persona, right? It's like, cool, these are the people who love this. Let's build more for them and go find other people like this. So I think for us, it was that. And then honestly, it was also just, let's test our manufacturing and fulfillment and logistics capabilities, right? I mean, this is, as much as we are a B2B, SaaS platform, or that's what we envision the future of Goodz being. There is a physical component of this. We do have that part basically done at this point, but we just, what is it like to order 1,000 of these? What is it like to put these in the mail to people and actually take orders and just some of that processing, because we do envision a more wholesale future where we're doing, thousands or tens of thousands of these at a time. And so I think we just want to button up and do some dry runs before we get to those kinds of numbers.
I think it's important to remember that we are talking in startup time. And while this last week seems like an eternity, it's been a week that we've had this in place. So we're just starting to learn these things and we plan on continuing to do so.
Yeah, but I think we thought that getting a website up would be a good way to just start kind of testing everything more.
Great. And reminder to those watching us live, feel free to ask us questions in the comments and we'll be sure to get to those. Danny, what went into deciding what would be in this first version of the site and the e-commerce offering?
I think, a lot of it was kind of mostly driven by Chris and Mike. They kind of had a vision and an idea of what they wanted to sell. Obviously, from the user interviews, we were also kind of talking about, we were starting to hone in a little bit more, and we had some assumptions going into it. I think we ultimately did kind of feel like, I think the playlisters seem to be the target market, but just hearing it more and hearing more excitement from them was definitely just kind of I think we can double down on this piece. But ultimately, in terms of launching the e-commerce platform and the storefront and the website, most of it was just how do we get, just literally looking at the user journey and being how does a user get from getting onto a site, as soon as they land there, to finishing a purchase, and what points do they need? What are the key things that they need to think through and typically will run into. And a lot of it is just kind of reflecting on our own personal buyer behavior, and also as we were getting closer to the launch, starting to work through some of those assumptions about buyer behavior. As we got there, we obviously had some prototypes. We had some screenshots that we were already working with, like the design team was already starting to build out some of the site. And so we would just kind of show it to our users and just be like, hey, like, how do you expect to purchase this? Like, what's the next step that you expect to take? And we're just kind of like continuing to iterate on that piece. And so, yeah.
Okay, so you were, before launching, even showing some of those mock-ups and starting to incorporate them in the user interviews.
Yeah. I mean, we try to get it in there in front of them as early as possible, partially because like at some point in the user interviews, like you're mostly just trying to first understand like who are our target customers, who are these people. Like we have an assumption of or an idea of who we think they are, but really like once you start talking to people, you kind of are like, okay, like this thing that I thought maybe it wasn't so accurate, or like the way that they're kind of talking about these products doesn't 100% match what I originally walked into this experiment with. So we like start to hone in on that. But after a certain point, you kind of get that idea, and now you're just like, okay, you seem to be like the right person to talk to. And so if I were to show you this thing, do you get it, right? Like, do you understand what's happening? Like how to use this thing, what this product even does? And then also like, does the like checkout experience feel like intuitive for you? Like, is it as simple as like, I just want to buy a t-shirt. So like, I'm just going to go buy the t-shirt, pick a size and, move on with my life. Can we make it as seamless as that? So, yeah.
That's a good point.
And so you mentioned it's only been a week since it's been live. Have you been able to learn anything from it yet? And how are you trying to, drive people to it today?
Yeah, I think we learned that sales is hard and slow and takes some time. But it's good. I mean, we're learning a lot. I mean, it's just so interesting to have all the. It's been a while since I've really dug deep in like the analytics and marketing kind of metrics, and so we've got all the Google Tag Manager stuff, hooked up, and just connecting with just exploring honestly like the TikTok advertising platform and the YouTube pre-rolls and shorts and like a lot of stuff that I actually since the last time I was heavily involved in this stuff is just totally new and different, and so it's been super interesting to see the funnel, right, and sort of see where people are getting in the site, where people are dropping off. We had an interesting conversation in our thoughtbot sync yesterday or the day before, where we were seeing how we're getting lots of people to the front page and actually a good number of people to the product page, and actually like not the worst number of people to the cart, but then you were seeing really high cart abandonment rates, and then then you start Googling it and you're like, oh, actually everybody sees very high cart abandonment rates. That's just a thing. But we were seeing like the people were taking, viewing their cart, 7 or 8 times, and they were on there sort of 5 times as long as they were on any other page. And it's this problem that I think Danny was talking about, where we need to actually get a playlist URL. This gets into the minutia of what we're building, but basically like we need to get them to give us a playlist URL in order to check out. Right. And so you sort of have to like put yourself back in the mind of someone is scrolling on Instagram and they see this as an ad and they click it and they're like, oh, that thing looks cool. Sure, I will buy one of those. And then it's like, no, actually, you need to go find, leave this, go into a different app, find a play. Like it suddenly just puts a lot of I call it mental strain, but it's a lot. It's a cognitive load greater than, as you said, just buying a T-shirt and telling you what size you want. So thinking through ways to really trim that down, shore up the amount of time people are spending on a cart. All that stuff has been fascinating. And then just like the different demographic kind of work that we're using, all the social ads platforms to kind of identify has been really interesting. So it's still early, but actually like Chris and I were just noticing, we were just talking right before this call, like we're actually starting to get just in the last 12 hours, but more people signing up to our email newsletter than probably in the last 12 hours than we have in the whole last week. And so it's just like, I don't know, just even that sort of learning. It's like, oh, do people just need time with a thing, or they come back and think about it? Yeah.
Could these people be working on their playlists? That's a question that I have. It's like, I'm making the playlist to drop into this product. It's it's really interesting, and I think it gives insight to kind of, how personal this product could be, that this is something that takes effort on part of the consumer, because they're basically they're making something to give or to keep for themselves, which is, I think, really interesting, but definitely hard too.
Yeah, I want to also clarify, like Chris just kind of said it, but it's like especially for viewers and listeners, like that's something that we've been hearing a lot from user interviews too, right? Like the language that they're using is like, this is a thing that I care about. Like it's a representation of who I am. It's a representation of like the relationship that I have with this person that I'm going to be giving, this gift to, or this playlist to specifically. Like people feel like really passionate about these things. And I mean, like I did too, like when I was first trying to like date my wife, like I spent like hours trying to pick the coolest songs that I thought, were like, oh, like she's gonna think I'm so cool because like I listen to these like super low key indie rock bands, and like so many more hours than she probably spent listening to it. But that's kind of like honestly what we heard a lot in a lot of these interviews. So yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah. Same. No, totally resonates. And I went to the site this week and I was like, oh, damn, this is cool. Like, and immediately it was like, oh, I've got these 3, music friends that we go to shows together. It's like, oh, this would be so cool to get them, playlists of like music we've seen together. So you might see me in the cart.
Please,
I
would love that.
Don't think about it too long if you could.
Yeah.
I won't.
I mean, I would say I'm really excited about having the site not only as a vehicle for selling some of these things, but also as a vehicle for just honing our message. It's like another tool that we have in our arsenal. During the user interviews themselves, we were talking in abstract terms, and now we have something concrete that we can bounce off people, which is, I think, going to be a huge boon to our tool set for as we continue to refine and define this product.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you mentioned that they're signing up for like email updates. Do you have something you're sending out, or are you kind of just creating a list? Totally fine.
No,
just building a list.
It's a picture of Mike and I giving a big thumbs up. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it made me. That was the thing. I was like, oh, great, they're signing up, and I was like, oh shit, they're signing up. Okay, now we got to write something. But we will.
Well,
tips to making your playlist, creating your playlist.
Right, and then also,
that's a good idea.
Tips to making your playlist. Also, we're advancing on the collectible side of things too. We are hopefully going to have 2 pilot programs in place, one with a major label and one with a major artist, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I assume you can't tell us very much.
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
Yeah, we won't mention names in case it just goes away, as these things sometimes do. But there's a great band who's super excited about these. They've been around for a long time, some good name recognition, very loyal fan base. They want to do sort of a collection of these. Like, I think maybe we showed I can't remember if we showed the little crates that we make or not, but basically a little milk crate. So they want to sell online a package that's 5 or 6 goods in a crate, which I think will be cool and a great sort of sales experiment. And then there's a couple artists that we're going to do an experiment with that's through their label that's more about tour, basically giving things away on tour. So they're going to do some giveaway fan club type like street team style experiments with some of these on the road. So for us, it's ideal provided both those things happen, because we definitely want to be exploring on the road and online stuff. And so this kind of lets us do both at once and get some real learnings as to kind of how people, because we still don't know, we haven't really put these in people's hands yet. And it's just like, are people scanning these a lot? Are they not? Or is it just sort of an object that's sitting on their shelf? Is it, it's just like, there's so much we're going to learn once we get these into people's hands.
Do you have the infrastructure to sort of see how many times the cards are scanned?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, we do.
Yeah, so we can see how many times each one is scanned, where they're scanned, that sort of thing.
And kind of our next step, and something we were just talking about today with the thoughtbot team, is building out kind of what the back end will be for this, both for for users and also for labels and artists, that will allow them to go in and post updates to the goods to allow them to use these for promotion as people, scan into them, to give them links to other sites related to the artists that they might be interested in before they move on to the actual musical playlist. So that's kind of the next step for us, and knowing how users use these collectibles, both the kind of consumer good and the artist collectibles that we were just talking about, will help inform how we build that platform.
Very cool. And right now, the online store itself, that's built in Shopify.
Yeah, the homepage is Webflow, that Kevin from the thoughtbot team really spearheaded in building for us, and then the e-commerce is Shopify.
Great. Y'all have been busy. Is there anything else we haven't maybe that I haven't asked about yet that we should touch on in terms of updates or things going on with the product?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think, like Chris said, I mean, we're just like, now that the site has kind of stood up and we're really switched over to kind of marketing and advertising on that, definitely digging into the back end of this kind of SaaS platform. That's going to probably be a big focus for the rest of the the program, to be honest. And looking into just some other things we can do on the mixtape front that could eventually build into the back end that I think could be interesting. No, I guess the short answer is no. Nothing like substantial. Those are the big.
Yeah, well, that was my next question too, which is kind of like, what's next, or what's the next chunk of work? So it's obviously lots more optimization and learning on the e-commerce platform, and then this other mega area, which is, what does this look like as a SaaS solution? What's the vision, but also where do we start? Which I'm sure Danny has a lot of work that you specialize in as far as like scoping, how to approach these kinds of projects.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we were just talking about this today. Like, part of it is like we can like really dig into like the e-commerce site and like really nailing it down to get it to the place where it's like we're driving tons of traffic or tons more traffic, and also like getting as high of as low of a like cart abandonment rate as possible, right? But also considering the fact that this isn't the future like large scale vision. And there's like also like we're starting to, I think, now iron out a lot of those like milestones where we're kind of like, okay, like we got like a short-term vision, which is like the e-commerce site, we got a midterm vision and a potential long-term vision. Like, how do we validate this long-term vision while also still like keeping this short-term vision moving forward? And like this midterm vision is also going to like help potentially either like steer us towards that long-term, or maybe even like pivot us like in a completely different direction. So like, where do you put your card, right? Like, where do you, like, how much energy and time do we put into like each of these areas? And that's kind of like the interesting part of this is starting to talk through that, starting to kind of prioritize like how we can maximize on our effort, like our development and design effort, so that things just kind of line up more naturally and organically for future visioning. So,
Yeah, a lot of different things to juggle. I saw there was a question. Somebody asked what the URL is, but I don't seem to be able to.
Jack had the same question as me. We got to drop the link. This thing.
I don't think I can type in here somehow, but it's just getthegoodz.com. Lindsay, maybe I don't know if you can type in there.
Let's see.
That's GOODZ.
Because www.
Getthegoodz.com. There you go. That'll do it.
Yeah. So get in there, folks.
Yeah. Buy one.
And then let us know how it goes.
Yeah, please. Any bugs, let us know. I think that those. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, Danny, in terms of just juggling kind of the near term and longer term stuff. It's a good kind of reminder. Our big focus, in the new year is going to be fundraising, right? We're already talking to some investors and things like that. So it's like, okay, yes, as you said, we could tweak the cart, we could tweak the e-commerce, or like, can we paint the big picture of what the longer term version of this company is going to be in a way that makes it compelling for investment to come in, so that there can be a long-term version of this company, and then we can build those things. So yeah, it's definitely a balance between the two.
Also just casual fundraising as well.
Yeah,
going on.
exactly. Yeah. But it's hard. It's like you wake up in the morning. It's like, do I want to like write cold emails to investors, or do I want to like look at Google Analytics and like tweak ad copy? That's actually more fun. So, yes.
Yeah, life of the founder.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, so that's get the goods with a Z.com. Check it out and get the goods.
Does anybody even use S's anymore? It's like they're just so, the S is so
Z's all the
passe.
time.
Z's all the
They're
time.
so over.
So over
They're
the
so
S.
over. And we'll tune in and see what happens with the e-commerce site, what happens with the SaaS planning, the next time that we check in. But Chris, Mike, Danny, thank you so much for joining today and sharing what's been going on over the last few weeks. You know, the good, the bad, the challenge, the cart abandonment. And you know, best of luck to you over the next few weeks, and we'll be sure to check in and see how it's going.
Okay. Thanks, Lindsay. It's really good to chat.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Lindsay.
you.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Bye.